I'm so excited that today we get to hang out with one of my favorite people, Miss Bite Size. So what we have planned for today is a tier list, and if we have time, a second tier list. But we're going to be doing a meta tier list for all of the characters that were released during Sumeru. So from 3.0 all the way up to 3.7, and just discussing Sumeru along the way. We want to ruffle some feathers with our opinions and have a good time.
I was telling chat that we already put the categories together. I'm excited to see if chat either agrees with our opinions or, I want to see how everything goes. But
Yeah.
Everything should be lined up. So we're doing everyone from 3.0 to now. So that'll include the Dendro characters and everyone released that wasn't exactly from Sumeru, but.
So like I said, we're going to be doing meta tier list, and so we kind of just came up with the tiers right before stream. And so at the very top we have game changers, so characters you basically should get, they're just really cracked, super good. Almost S tier, not quite, but still pretty dang good. Then we just kind of have the mid tier, those characters, they're not going to change your account, they're not bad necessarily, they're just there. Savior Prima Gems, basically, this is our C tier, and you know what that means. It's you're better off just skipping them, honestly. You probably will not even use them. And then last but not least is D is for Dory.
It couldn't have been more fitting.
It could not have been more fitting. We got S, A, B, C, and D is for Dory. So we already know what that tier is going to look like, but who knows if anyone will join Dory down there. I'm not quite sure yet. Okay, so I'm going to put this one on you, I think, but the first one is Tignari, and
yes.
I do not have Tignari, so I don't feel very qualified to talk about Tignari on a meta tier list. I don't know how you feel. Okay.
Yeah, so backstory for Tignari. I wanted Tignari so bad. So I pulled on his banner, actually pulled him on his banner because I had a feeling I would not get him if I, because this is how it all works. I wanted Jean, I never got Jean. She was the last one to come home for me from Standard. So I was I'm not going to have this happen again. So I got Tignari, and honestly, I think he's very strong. I think he's very strong. I don't think I put him in meh. I would consider him more almost S tier, just for a good spread, in a spread aggravate team if you want to do something like that. But I don't know if I would consider him. Yeah, I think he's very strong. I was even running him in scuffed Hyperbloom teams in the beginning, but he actually helped me clear. He actually helped me 36 star my abyss for the very first time. So okay. I'm honestly thinking S tier. I'm sorry, not game changer, but almost S tier is where I want to put him.
I'm going to go ahead and trust your judgment on this one, because I definitely was thinking mid tier, but I do feel like people who have Tignari and play him pretty often tend to speak really well of his damage, especially for him being a standard character, because I guess the bar before that was kind of D-Luke as the other DPS in the standard banner. And so him getting added to the standard banner and kind of having really good damage, I think, is a pretty good indicator. So I think, let's do it. We'll put him in almost S tier. It's you're pretty lucky if you get Tignari on the standard banner and or on a 50 loss. That's kind of more of a W than it is an L, right?
Yeah.
All right, Kale is up next.
Ooh, Kale.
Kale is an interesting one. Kale was our first ever off-field Dendro applicator, and obviously Tignari and Kale came out at the very same time. So they were our only two Dendro characters to start off with. And the thing is, I don't necessarily think she's bad, but I think there's so many better options. Now that we have all of these Dendro characters. So
and something to consider, she's free. She was free, and is she free in Abyss now?
Yes.
Can you get her? So
exactly.
I would say maybe not Savior Primos, and definitely not D for Dory, but I think that she just she's very ER hungry, and I just wish her skill was a little different. I like her burst, but it's just her skill is what if that's the 50-50 cutter for me, where I feel meh. Personally,
I think potentially I play a lot of on-field as well, and so I end up feeling even her burst just runs out so fast, and then next thing I know, I don't have any Dendro application if I use Kale. So it just Yeah, I definitely think her kit overall has quite a few issues. For me, because you do get her for free in Spiral Abyss, I honestly think just save your primos. Like, grab your one free Kale. Her constellations aren't going to make her groundbreaking by any means. So, like,
Yeah.
don't use your Prima Gems to get more Kale constellations unless she's literally your favorite character, right? But
Yeah.
otherwise, get the free Kale and then just move on.
Yeah, agreed. No, I guess yeah, save your primos because well, number one, you don't
Sorry,
actually need to
Kale.
use your primos, but I agree. I agree.
She's so cute, but man, I'm so sorry, Kale. Okay, well, I think you might remember who is next up, but our next character is Dory.
I mean, this is kind of easy, right?
Yeah, so D is for Dory. She has her own category. Um, there's a lot of reasons that people hate Dory, and it started off simply with a lot of people absolutely hated her design. But even outside of that, I think Dory is so clunky to play. Her claymore attacks feel, in my opinion, like pretty slow and awful and just not good. There's
Yeah.
only a string of 3 attacks, which is kind of strange feeling to play. And yeah, I mean, her burst can be really finicky. I do
Hmm.
think she can heal really well if you know how to build her, because
Yeah.
ultimately that's her purpose. So she is an electro healer.
Yeah.
Um, but the
I
way
also
that
think
her burst work is so strange.
yeah, I think she's just completely outclassed by Cookie. Like that's the thing
Yeah.
is like I mean, let's say you don't have Cookie, but like what would be you would probably want to use Dory in like maybe like a hyper bloomish situation and just
Hmm.
like you have an electro healer that can work with Dendro teams. I just feel like just completely outclassed
Yeah,
by
exactly.
Cookie. Yeah, which is
Yep.
kind of unfortunately where I'm pitting her up against someone like Cookie. So
Yeah.
not a fan of her kit. It's not great,
No,
no.
not at all. Definitely recommend skipping.
Side note, Mon, my chat is keep saying that we completely forgot about DMC being someone that technically was first. Is
That's
that
true.
do yeah.
We
So
can
but
bring him up
I
there. You know, I haven't really thought about Dendro Traveler in a hot minute. I still think he is really fantastic. I honestly think when our options were Kale and Dendro Traveler was significantly easier to use, much more consistent application, just really ER
yeah.
hungry.
And
But
obviously completely accessible too.
yeah, exactly. And, as you progress in the exploration, DMC's constellations are actually really fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like the
No, it's
C6 is
definitely
really good. A lot of them are just overall fantastic constellations to upgrade the kit. And
yeah.
so I feel like if you didn't grab a certain character that we're going to discuss shortly, I think this is very likely still one of your best options for Dendro application. I really do. The downfall being the Pyro. If you recall,
Yeah.
if you apply Pyro to the Traveler's Burst, it explodes, and there goes your your
Yeah.
Dendro application, right? So
Yeah.
Burgeon is near impossible with his character, which is kind of a
Yeah.
bummer, but he works on everything else when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
Dendro reactions.
No, definitely best traveler resonance by far. Still a little bit circle impact where you're kind of
Yup.
contained by the burst
It's a big
where
one though.
yeah. It's yeah, exactly. It's like but it's not it's like circle impact, but it's not that bad. And just yeah, definitely best traveler resonance for
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah.
don't know if I don't think he's almost S tier, but I probably more like mid for where we're at now. In the beginning this would have been very different, but where we're at now I think definitely more mid.
Yeah.
Just compared to everything else we have. Yeah.
I think so too. I'll keep him in the mid. I think very likely can fall in the top of the mid characters, but still really fantastic. Definitely don't sleep on it, especially if your Dendro application options are limited, because it's a really good one. Just maybe don't do Burgeon. Okay, Candace. Ooh.
It's killing me not to make jokes.
Oh, Candace.
So
Oh.
I really wish Candace was a full shield, like a full hydro shielder.
Me too.
My assumption, and I've talked about this before, is like I think that they didn't make Candace a full shielder probably because there may or may not be a 5-star hydro shield one day, and it's
Yeah,
like at that
especially with
point,
Fontaine
why
coming soon. Yeah.
exactly? Yeah, it's like why
Yep.
pull? Why get a 5-star when Candace could do the job type of thing? But her
Yeah.
kit's more like Beto. Love that. Love the HP scaling. And there's
Yes.
obviously plenty of
Mhm.
options. I think that she's easy to build. She's like
Yeah.
HP. There's like the weapons are there for her. She's obviously beauty, but overall just
Mm-hmm.
kind of underwhelming.
She's super underwhelming, I think,
Yeah.
especially because I think a lot of us are holding on to the hopium that she'll eventually work really well with a future character. Regardless, to
Mm-hmm.
make full use of her kit, especially her burst, you really have to like work in some really different team comps and kind of think out of the box, and it just doesn't lend well to how
Yeah.
you typically would play Genshin. And I think she had so much potential, but unfortunately, I would never recommend anybody to like use their Prima Gems on Candace. For me, as much as I absolutely love Candace, it hurts me to say, but I really would tell you to save your Prima Gems. I
Yeah.
would.
Yeah. Not D tier. I think
Yeah.
where Candace maybe shines the best right now is in like a Nilu Bloom team where you would use
Yeah,
Yao Yao as your
absolutely.
on fielder, and then you have the
Yes.
infusion for your Yao Yao. You know,
Yep. Perfectly
yeah,
said. That is 100% where her niche is right now. One last note
yeah.
on Candace, I will say, despite all her issues, she has some of the coolest normal attacks in the game. Okay, Sino.
Sino. So I'm a big Sino fan.
Sino!
So this is like
Yes,
it's the
that's
Sino
right.
Tignari. It's the Sino
Mm-hmm.
Tignari advice.
Yeah.
But the thing is I think that Sino on release was like maybe like grossly underrated because I think that he is number one, very easy to build, but I think he's very strong. I just think that he in some ways relies on certain characters to be run with him, which can
Mm-hmm.
kind of it wouldn't be he's not game changing in my opinion, but I think he's very strong. Like
Yeah,
you can get some
agreed.
big numbers. Yeah.
I definitely agree. I think his damage is definitely underestimated by a lot of people who kind of fell into the trap of thinking Cyno is so bad, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Especially just like all the talk upon his release, you know, oh, he sucks, his damage is so mid, la la la, because a lot of people were kind of attempting to
Yeah.
use him on a aggravate team instead
Yeah.
of where he shines a little bit more, which is more of that quick bloom team, which is kind of a hyper bloom aggravate
Yeah. Love
combo.
him in Hyper Bloom. Love him in
Yeah,
Hyper
and
Bloom.
so he actually is really fantastic on those teams, but again, his burst is so long, and while yes, you can, choose the duration by switching out of his burst to kind of end it a little bit early,
Mm-hmm.
there are so few characters that
Yeah.
can keep up with the duration of his burst, and that's where you get a
Yeah.
lot of his damage, and not only
It's
his
literally
damage,
me.
but also his energy.
Yeah.
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 So
I think
that's
he
why
does well with like big bosses because
yeah.
like you especially like let's say because Nahida's skill lasts as long as his burst does,
Mhm.
but that would require that the enemies stay alive long enough to keep her mark on them. Which is where I think he's better in boss situations because it's like with same thing with Nahida. Like if the enemies die too quickly, you need to go in and mark them again, and that means you just have to like swap out of his
Exactly.
burst.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
Yeah.
Sino is a tough one. Overall, I think his damage is fine for a 5-star character.
For sure.
He's a little bit more difficult to work around with. He actually reminds me a lot of Xiao and building
Yeah.
Xiao teams and
Yeah.
how long his burst lasts. So it reminds
Yeah.
me a lot of that.
No, you're right for
But I
sure.
definitely don't think that like your Prima Gems will be wasted by any means if you pull for him. But I think he maybe kind of falls a little flat. So he for
Yeah.
me could go like on the mid tier.
Oh, you
That's
think
what I'm
so?
thinking. I think so. Yeah. Do you think he
Yeah.
would still be almost S tier, but like on the lower side?
It's almost like I would want to fit him into a tier between meh and almost S tier.
Should we add one?
Um,
We can add one.
I'm down to add one.
Let's add
It's a
our.
matter of like what do we
Yeah.
call?
Okay.
Um,
So I
this
like
is
could
where
definitely be worse.
you think so?
I like that.
We could
I feel better about that. I feel better about that.
agreed. Agreed.
All right. So
Well,
next up we have Nilu.
oh, broken for sure.
Broken.
Absolutely
Okay.
game-changing broken.
The only reason that Nilu got a little bit of hate at the very beginning of her release is
'Cause she
because
released before
Nahida
Nahida.
didn't
Yep.
exist yet. Yes.
Mhm.
And just in
Mhm.
general, the options were DMC, Tignari, and Kali, right? So
Yep.
again, once we got those other Dendro options,
Mhm.
I am just blown away by the insane amount of damage you can get on a Nilu Bloom team. Like if you really dedicate her team to, having only the Hydros and the Dendros together, she
Yeah.
is so broken.
I think honestly, it's and I think it's so cool that she completely changes how an entire reaction works. Like,
Yeah.
and in order to do that, there needed to be some balance. And I think that having her just be Dendro and Hydro is like the balance up because she is just like incredibly broken. Like
It's
at C
very
zero,
broken.
yeah,
No, really.
yeah,
C0 don't even need her weapon. Like put her on an
yeah,
energy recharge weapon and even still
yeah.
like stack as much HP as you can and she will still be just outputting insane amount of damage and she's not even relying on her skill and her burst. Like quite literally all you need is to level her up to 90 so that she gets more HP. Obviously you can get
100%.
some decent damage from her burst if you level that up, but quite
Yeah.
literally I know so many people that got Nilu, got her up to 90, left her talents
Yep.
at 1.
No, seriously. And honestly, like she's just gotten stronger and stronger with the option of having a whole other two-piece HP set now. Like
Yes,
now you can have
absolutely.
two-piece HP. And my
Mm-hmm.
theory is, and this could be a crack theory, but if we don't get craftable HP weapons in Fontaine, like let's say we do, that's just gonna increase her value even higher because let's say you don't have key and you're trying to be F2P. If there's some way to get like a craftable like 4-star HP sword or something, like I think that would make her
Yeah.
even better. More
Yeah.
accessible for
No,
yeah.
absolutely. And I think ultimately I until Nilu was released, I never could have imagined Hoyo releasing a character that quite literally changes a reaction. I didn't think that was possible, and so her
Mm-hmm.
being the first ever character to do this and do it well, to
Yeah,
me is pretty game changing. And while I
agreed.
don't think she herself is like the most broken unit in the game,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that her kit is absolutely game changing because it introduced a new
Absolutely.
mechanic and a new way to create a kit for characters that we have never seen before.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of are you going to enjoy that Bloom playstyle? If you're
Yeah.
not, probably skip her. But if you think you can
Yeah.
get enjoyment out of the fast explosion, really fast playstyle,
Definitely.
and very satisfying explosion kind of thing, I think
Yeah.
she's pretty game changing.
Yeah. And if you're willing to take like so much damage, like because for
Mm-hmm.
like even for those who have C2 Nahida,
Obi, welcome
that's when you
in. Thank
can
you for
your
the
blooms can
follow.
crit, and then of course like the damage her too a bit. So I think like in a way, I think
Yeah.
it's balanced a little bit. Like you want to have like either Hydro or Dendro healers. I'm so glad I got Nilu.
Me too.
Not disappointed at all. Oh yeah.
I'm thinking game changers. Do you agree?
Oh, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Next up is our girl Nahida, the Denjo Archon.
I already moved her up to the very tippy top. I
Oh
just,
yeah. No,
oh
I
my,
mean
she's so
truly
good.
I don't know what I wanted or expected out of the Gendro Archon, but they absolutely nailed it. I think
Oh my,
she
yes.
also something that I found kind of game changing as well is Nilu's skill, or sorry, Nahida's skill and the way that you can kind of like link up the enemies and they'll take damage basically by hitting only one of the enemies is
Mm-hmm.
kind of like a new crowd control mechanic,
Exactly. Crowd control
which
without animo, basically.
exactly it's crowd control
Yes.
without animo, and I think that is just so insane and really
Oh, insane.
cool. And it also helps other characters so much, like Sino, for example.
Oh
When
yeah,
he can't get to a specific enemy, he's still doing damage to
100%.
those side guys, you know?
Yeah.
Her
I
skill is
honestly,
broken and it does
no,
so much damage.
her skill's so broken. Like it's, and I'm gonna throw like a handful of pointers, but um, the sheer amount of particles you get just from her skill and like
So
the crowd
good.
control,
Yes.
um,
Yep.
and I know that a lot of people are not Catalyst enjoyers, but I could
Mm-hmm.
not imagine that the Dendro Archon being anything but Catalyst just for the sheer amount of Dendro that you can apply. It's
Yeah.
just like
So
no one
true.
applies more Dendro like that.
Yeah.
And of course like her overworld abilities, like if there was an overworld meta, I mean she's so useful. She's
Yeah.
so useful.
Grabbing the literally the flowers that you need to farm for her. She can farm her own flowers. Nahida is kind of like a perfect example of how you do split scaling the right way on a character. Because she obviously scales off elemental mastery, but then she also scales really well with just attack and crit damage and crit
For
rate.
sure.
So
For sure.
she is quite literally the epitome of a perfect split scaling character because it's so well balanced the way
Yeah.
that it's done. And I think it's also like the more elemental mastery you get, the more crit rate
Crit.
she gives
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah.
She is so fantastic.
Yeah.
She can also give elemental mastery to other party members who are on field.
Definitely.
So she's just doing a lot. She is a sub DPS. She is a support. She is a battery. Like, she's got so much going on for her in all the right ways. And fabulous kit. Couldn't be happier. Okay,
Yeah.
Layla.
Layla. Okay, Layla. I love Layla. When Layla was coming out, my first thought was like, okay, we have Diona, and Diona heals, right?
Right.
So how is this going to be different? But honestly, Layla is more like Zhongli, where it's
Yeah.
like you either build for shield or you build for like damage, or you try to do like a hybrid of both. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that especially with constellations, I think I and this could be the same thing as well as like she's also HP scaling, which is so nice.
Yeah.
Easy to build and honestly one of the strongest shields in the game. So
Mm-hmm. No, her shield is super super strong. I'm not even done building my Layla, but even still, it's proven to be quite good. And I think when you build her for shields, obviously you're sacrificing a ton of the damage.
definitely.
However, she still can enable some reactions because her burst will kind of
Yes.
do the little shooting. So if you have her skill and her
Mm-hmm.
burst up at the same time, you're kind of getting
Yep.
like double the shooting stars that apply cryo.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can really kind of get a couple of those reactions, especially if you're using any kind of freeze within your team, because then
Yep.
the cryo application lasts longer. So she is kind of a surprise to me, but she ended up being really quite good.
Yeah. And another character that can use and benefit from tenacity, like the 4 piece,
Yes,
as cons
absolutely.
go up, I think that's
Yup.
huge.
Yes,
Definitely.
tenacity users are seriously some of my favorites for
I'm
sure.
thinking like Tignari, like where Tignari is, like almost S tier.
Okay, we can
Up.
put her around the Tignaris, and I'm good with that. Definitely for the no Zhongli havers, get yourself a Layla. Also, we're getting free Layla this patch. We're
Oh
literally getting free
yeah.
Layla in this patch. So if you do not have your Layla, make sure you snag that Layla up. Okay, you're gonna have a crack shielder.
True.
Trust.
True.
All right, next up we have Farzan.
Okay. Now,
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
so Farozan, I okay, this is the thing about Farozan, and Farozan is I don't know. I think that she's almost game changing if you use Animo DPSs because she
Yeah.
is like she's one of the only ways to really buff your Animo damage. I think aside from what Gene C4,
Right.
not only
Yeah.
that, but her 6 constellation, like she will do 6-digit numbers
Oh
herself.
no, she has insane scaling. Like her
Insane.
personal damage is so strong, so
Yeah.
good, especially because she also relies on an attack and crit based kit.
Yeah.
So what you're relying on to support your other characters is your base attack, but then outside of that, you still continue to build her with attack, crit rate, crit damage, and as much energy as you can.
Mm-hmm.
She can take advantage of Emblem if you choose to go that route. And her
Yeah.
constellations overall really improve her kit.
No,
Obviously, like we love a
seriously.
character that's fantastic at C0, which I do think that she is. However, she continues to improve every
Exactly.
constellation. I think she's pretty much S tier, like almost
No, I
S tier,
agree.
like not
I was
quite to
thinking
me game changing. I
it would
see
be
your
like game
point.
changing if you're an animo enthusiast. So
Next up, we have the next animo character, which is our boy Wanderer.
Wonder.
Wanderer.
So I mean, I'm a huge Wanderer enthusiast. He does a ridiculous amount of damage, but I am of
Yeah.
course running him with Farozan. I'm running him
Mhm.
with Bennett.
Yeah.
I
All
don't
the
know if
buffers, yeah.
yeah, I don't think he's necessarily game changing, but I think he is incredibly strong.
I like that you can also build him, with that new set that kind of
Yes.
increases like your attack speed. But you
Yep.
can also go the elemental mastery route as well as the charge attack route.
You go two
So
piece, 2 piece as well. He's like
yeah.
Xiao. He's got a lot. He's similar to Xiao in the way he's got tons of options to be built, but also he's got like
Mhm.
a good amount of weapons he can use too. Like
Yeah.
he's I would say relatively FTP friendly.
One thing about Wander is he can get knocked out so quickly when you're up in the up in the air. The amount of clips that I have of my Wanderer flying into the oblivion in Abyss is kind
He
of
needs a
insane.
shield. He needs a shield.
No,
for
he
sure.
absolutely up in the air. You need that shield. It feels like a must,
Hmm.
kind of in a similar way as like Yoimiya, I think. You really don't want to be interrupted when you're doing those really strong attacks.
Thinking
Okay.
almost S tier as well. There's a lot of people like I think that what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't compare him to Xiao. Because there's
Right.
my chat were
Super
trying to compare him
different.
to Xiao.
Yeah.
Completely different. He does ridiculous damage for
No, he
me.
does.
Um,
Like
and
skill, normals, and bursts. Like they're all
yeah,
very evenly
yeah.
like
He's
good with damage.
agreed. Yeah. So I'm thinking I would say almost S tier. He
And Hex says works with his mom too.
works,
Right
oh
in.
my god, with his mom. I know people love to say the only thing I love about Wander is his mom. But like his mom could have been so much better to him. Truly.
Yeah.
What a terrible mother.
Hilarious. Yeah. So next up we have Alhaitham.
Albert. Okay.
Albert!
It's like your Dendro carries in a way because like it's like Nahida and then it's like Al like right
Yeah.
underneath. I couldn't
Right.
recommend two other characters. Like if you want like Dendro carries, like I think that those are your two options.
I agree. I think if you want an on-field Dendro character, it's definitely going to be Alhaitham.
Yeah.
I think Alhaitham was also kind of the first dedicated, or I guess, I mean, Tignari as well, but Alhaitham was the first limited 5-star character to come out that
Yeah.
was definitely geared towards more of that spread kind of team with the option to still use him Hyper Bloom and still be very good at it. He also has a split scaling kind of kit.
Yep.
Also done very well, in my opinion.
No, I think I was so surprised with how good he was. Like at a C0 level, he is incredibly strong.
You know, a lot of his scaling does come from that elemental mastery, but because it's so well balanced, that having that attack on him is still really fantastic. You just get a little bit less of the reaction damage.
Yeah.
But even so, still so strong. Very easy to build with how fantastic his split scaling is, and also has really good free to play options. We've got so many elemental mastery swords in the friggin' there's so many options. Like his sword is fantastic, but you've got the umbrella, you've got Iron Sting, you've got Harbinger of Dawn, you've literally it like so many.
Yeah.
Even Kazuha's sword, like there are so many options. Obviously, those elemental mastery ones make it a little bit more difficult to balance his crit stats. I don't think he's game changing to me, honestly, but I definitely think he's in that like about to be S tier. But he's a fantastic DPS, and I think he kind of would go at the top of the almost S tier for me. And I also think Alhaitham is a really, really like hit or miss character. You either love his playstyle or you don't, because he does have that stack mechanic that one is very difficult to even understand just from reading the kit, right? But like it's a little bit more challenging to manage his playstyle and manage his mirror stacks. But once you get the hang of it, it's so strong and so much fun. But 100%. That's definitely something to keep in mind as maybe someone who is thinking about getting Alhaitham. It's like really check out that trial, because I know so many people that like don't really like his playstyle that much, even though they love his character, love his design, like all that stuff. And they also like, they're like, yeah, he's so strong, but I just don't like playing him. What about Yao Yao? I think Yao Yao is absolutely an S tier, and oh my goodness, is she good. She can apply the Dendro, okay? She might not be the best at it, but she can. She can and she will, and she'll heal you while doing it. Invincible. Seriously, you pop Yao Yao's burst and entire team instantly back to full health. And also just like, it's so cute to see all the little Uruguays like everywhere. So cute. She's fabulous. Man, does she shine on that Nilu Bloom team as the healer. She is absolutely S tier to me. Like S tier for sure. Or I guess it's technically called almost S tier, but like, yeah. She might actually be the best 4-star that we've gotten in over a year, or at least in the entirety of Sumeru. I really do think that. She is just a phenomenal healer, a great Dendro applicator as like maybe a second Dendro on the team potentially.
Yeah.
And also she is so dang cute. Love her. Fantastic.
Hear me out, Mond.
Yes.
Hear me out. What if we actually put something between game changing and almost S tier and had like just like an S tier? Is that not
I'm open to it.
a good idea? Are you open to it? Because I
I'm
feel
open
like
to it.
It's almost like I would potentially
Hey
move
Milk, how are
Farlezon
you?
in my like you move my Farlezon and Yao Yao into like in between almost and like
Bet.
game changing.
Say
Is that
less.
cool?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm in.
there we go.
I like this.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I
Thank you
agree with
so much.
this. I
All
totally
right.
agree with this. Okay, next up.
All right.
Ooh, okay. I am so interested to see but Dia.
Like Savior Primos, probably. But at this point now she's standard. You know, the
Yeah.
thing is
Someone said Dory's got company.
it's difficult because I still like maybe I'm just coping so hard,
I'm
but I
coping.
really
I'm
like
definitely
I
coping.
I have
D
to
for
I
Dia.
it just oh my god, someone that's so funny actually. That's so funny. Dude, I wanted more from Dia. I just feel like Hoyo was trying to force like a DPS build
Yeah.
on her to
She's
like to the
confused.
players.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't like she's got a crit weapon and everything like that, but I feel like her purpose is like not yet. Like she doesn't have a purpose yet. Like it's
Agreed.
almost like Kooky before Dendro. Like I like to think that this is like Kooky Gate all over again. Not that Kooky wasn't bad. It's not like Dia's like not completely unusable. It's just
Yeah.
I don't
Oh
know. Let me
man.
instead of let me cook, let me cope. Let me cope.
My chat is killing me. Milk Impact said D for disappointment.
Oh my.
D for Dory, D for Dia, D for disappointment. I would absolutely not recommend getting Dia. Not that you can. It's up to RNG, right? But I'm
Yeah.
going to put her in Dia's for Dory. I'm going to be honest. As much
Number
as I
one in our
absolutely
hearts.
love her, her kit is so confused. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It wants to be a pyro applicator. It wants to be a DPS. It wants to be a burgeon support. It wants to be a tank. It's a hot
Yeah.
mess. I'm not saying that you can't make her work because you absolutely can. However, like that's not the point of like what a 5-star should be, right? Like you shouldn't have
Yeah.
to go through all these extra lengths just to make a character viable.
Her constellations help a lot, which I think is how it's justifiable keeping her in standard, assuming like let's assume you do get Dia constellations. It does help her a bit, but it's like her higher constellations are definitely her better. D
But
for
it is.
disparage.
D for I'm so done. Okay. Mika.
Mika.
Who? Who's that?
It's tough because Farlezon, like even Farlezon at C0 is so helpful.
Yeah.
Or I just feel like Mika at C0 is it's not at Chief. Like
Yeah.
you really need he applies like I actually think he applies the least amount of any kind of element.
No, he literally
game.
he beat Chi-Chi as the worst element applicator. Like I did not think that was possible until Mika came out, and then he does not apply cryo. Like there's nothing there.
For mistakes made.
He just
Oh
has
my
a
God.
kit. His kit is there and it doesn't do anything. He doesn't have an element.
Yeah. I could see if you're like a Eula main, a huge Eula enjoyer, and you have him C6 and you're willing to invest in him
Yeah.
for Eula. I just don't see a purpose for him outside of that right now in the current state of the game. I
Yeah.
just don't. But I think it's really cool, like the way that like having multiple weapons, like Mance is like a catalyst, a bow unit, and like a polearm unit all in one. I just
He's
feel
trying
like
to do it all.
yeah, he's basically Case the Dia, but like with weapons.
Yeah. What's the saying? Like, master of none.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah,
master
jack of all
none.
trades.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yep.
him. Like he doesn't know what he wants to be. Dia too.
Like he takes up a whole team slot too. Like where you
He does. And
like
then,
most Eulas run with Bennett most of the time. Let's say you're running with Bennett or something like that. Like you're willing to give up Benny for Mika,
right?
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a hard one to slot in, especially with the lack of cryo application. Because, for example, like say I'm a physical official haver, right? And
Mhm.
I wouldn't even be able to. I would have to find like an extra cryo character to put in for superconduct. Because he's not going to apply the cryo, and if I want to continue buffing the physical reaction, then I'm going to need the superconduct. So that kind of then wastes. I'm like adding cryo resonance in for no reason.
Yeah.
So it's just not ideal, because when you're doing cryo resonance, you want to make sure that you actually are applying cryo. And if only one of the two cryo characters is applying cryo, there's still going to be times when you probably don't have cryo. So then you don't really get the crit buff as much as you probably think or hope you would.
Yeah.
So yeah, the cryo ain't resonating.
Save your primos for me.
We're almost done. And Surprisingly, it's 3 back-to-back Denjo characters. So first up,
It
we've
is.
got Baiju.
Baiju.
Baiju. So he's a little bit of a tough one for me because I don't think he meets my healing needs like necessarily better than Yao Yao, who's a 4-star.
Yeah.
His kit does provide some buffing to reactions, but his energy is really bad. Like, it's tough to
Yeah.
manage. You need a crap ton of energy on Baiju.
Yeah.
His shield doesn't really shield.
No, it's
if
like
you know what I
a
mean.
damage mitigator.
Yeah,
like
it's basically a damage mitigation. Yeah,
like interruption resistance. But
yeah,
for me, like I, the only places I could see him would either be probably meh or could be better, could definitely be worse. But at the same time,
yeah,
maybe more for me, meh. I think.
yeah. I think I'm definitely leaning towards kind of mid. And I don't necessarily want to say that he's like better or worse than like Sino and Traveler, for example, but I just think
For what he does.
for what he does, and
Yeah.
considering we have such a similar role already being filled by a character that is so good and is a 4-star
Is a
that we
4-star.
got for free, by the way, if you chose her in the Lantern, right?
By the way, true. Yes. No, you're right.
It's tough to put him any higher than that. And I think he's still usable. So I think if you do like Baiju as a character, I still think he's a decent one to pull because he will heal really nicely and he
Yeah.
will provide some buffs. So I don't necessarily think that he's
Yeah.
bad, but I have a hard time being like, oh, you should definitely get Baiju when
Yeah.
Yao Yao literally exists.
And he's honestly very fortunate just to have fallen in like a time where they also released that plus 20% HP as well. So
Yes,
he's fortunate
very
that he
true.
gets to take advantage of like a two-piece because he needs a lot. But you're right, he needs energy recharge, and it's
Yeah.
it's almost like I feel like he fits in well with like Sino teams and
Yeah.
like teams where you need that Dendro app. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I wished his design was I not his design, like his overall kit design. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
My expectations were higher, and I think I was just disappointed.
So yeah, to me, he falls at the very bottom of the like could be better, definitely be worse, or the top of the mid section. But I don't think he's that bad.
No,
However,
it's just,
yeah, when you draw the comparisons, it's hard to be like, oh my god, Baiju's so good. So yeah, he's just kind of there for me. Okay, what about Kaveh?
Kaveh.
I love Kaveh.
I love Kaveh. I think they completely revamped like
Also, hi,
Claymore
Blazer,
because
how
he's
are
not really
you?
like it's almost like he's not a Claymore. I don't
It's
know.
interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kind of went a little bit more of like the Dory route, but the improved Dory, where like something
Yeah.
else is doing the Claymore's attacks for him.
Yeah.
And so
yeah, exactly.
right. But
And
his
he's got
definitely feel
that-
like much smoother.
It does. And I think his kit is cool because he's got like I think he's got some flexibility.
Mhm.
I'm almost thinking maybe like could be better, could definitely be worse type of
Agreed.
situation.
Yeah.
I think he's fun to play. I think that the only the rough part is that he's like an on field. Like he's selfish and he wants most of the field time.
Definitely.
So it's really
Yeah.
like you're surrounding him with your supports and yeah.
And his kit is definitely kind of intended for that bloom role. And so
Mhm.
I do think like his kit is really interesting and I quite like it
Yeah.
overall. I do think it could be better. I do think it could be worse.
Mhm.
Overall, I think it plays really nicely. I think some of his constellations are quite nice. Like he gets an attack speed buff,
Yeah.
which for Claymores is really valuable.
Mhm.
And I think overall, he's like a really fantastic 4-star DPS or on-field character.
Yeah.
But he's not going to outclass your Alhaithams or your Wanderers or your Tignaris,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
but
think so.
The little healing bit, woven into his
useful.
kit is so fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
big fan of that. Yes. Okay, last but not least, we have Kirara.
Kirara, very cool.
She's
Super
great.
cool.
She's a really cool character.
She's
Absolutely.
really cool.
Very cool.
As far as like if we were to consider Dendro shield for Dendro reactions, like she actually does have the strongest shield in the game against like Dendro reactions.
Right.
And it's like tough because she's so cool outside of like meta, because like meta wise, like if we're talking like hard content, I don't know exactly where to put her. I honestly don't. But like overall, I think her kid is so cool. Just what a cool
Yeah,
character.
I agree. She has a really unique kit overall, and
Yeah,
her, open world ability where with like the climbing is so cool. Uh
so
Big
cool.
fan of that. I don't have Kirara, so I can't speak to her damage.
Mm-hmm.
But I really doubt she's in the like almost S tier. I maybe at the bottom of that, and like I think she's Kave range.
I
That's
yeah
how I kind of see Kirara, but again, I don't have her, so I only know from literally using somebody else's account for like a split moment. Hard to
yeah.
say for me.
She's kind of like she's the in between of Baiju and Yao Yao.
Hmm.
She's a lot like Layla in ways that she's not healing you, but her shield is incredibly strong, and she is fortunate enough to use like she has the option to use key. Like let's say you have an extra key lying around. Maybe you don't
Yeah,
have
so
Nilu, but
much
you have
HP
key.
scaling. Yeah.
She her shield can be very, very, very strong. Um,
Okay. So she's
and
the Dendro version of Layla for the Dendro
basically Layla.
reactions. So
Yeah.
let's put
I
her next
almost
to Layla.
I was thinking like we put her next to Layla.
Okay.
Might be fun to revisit something like this, like mid Fontaine, just to see like did anybody shift or
Yeah.
change with like new characters coming out.
That's so
Um,
true. Yeah, definitely something to like revisit and see, did Dia get any purpose at all? um
please.
yeah. I think I'm still a little torn between like the two tiers, mid and like Savior Primos, because I feel like these could all really fall into the same category, honestly.
Yeah,
It's just like
like one
however you
big
want to like
category.
see it. Yeah.
It's
So
almost like they need to be the same color. In a way.
yeah.
In a
Yeah, these
way.
all still kind of fall in a very similar spot for me. Like you can find good uses out of them, all three of them, Mika, Candace, and Kale, but just not really worth like spending primos to get probably. Mika could
Yeah.
also be one of those that in the future has more uses, more characters
Yeah.
that can kind of get that buff from him. It's
I
hard
agree.
with like the DPS characters. I'm looking at like Alhaitham and Wanderer because it
Yeah.
just it no longer feels like we'll have game changing DPS characters. Like it just
No.
doesn't really feel that way.
Not
We're
this late in the
definitely
game.
we're definitely in a
Yeah.
stage of like
It's
supports or
almost like reaction.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah. It's like
application of
reaction
your
based.
elements and stuff like that. So it's like
Yeah.
pick whatever driver you want. That could be Alhaitham, that could be Wanderer, it could be like pick whoever you want,
Hmm.
right? To be on
We have so
field,
many
but
options.
ultimately like yeah, they're all going to do really good damage for the most part and
Assuming you've built them well. Yeah. Right.
exactly. So
Exactly.
it's
No, I
hard
agree.
for these kind of DPS characters to really feel game changing, which like Ganyu and Hu Tao did when they first came out, but that's because we had such limited characters. And now that we
It
have
was
such a
them.
surplus
Yeah.
of DPS characters, it's like just pick whichever one you want. They're all gonna do like very similar damage and just fit whatever kind of reaction you're going for. This was so fun. I'm so glad we
This
did
was
this.
tons of fun.
Thank you again
so
to
much.
Hato for the idea.
Yeah, no, seriously, this was super fun idea and a great way to kind of like wrap up, Sumeru and
Mhm.
you know, yeah,
Yeah,
the
I'm glad
we'll
that
revisit.
ultimately we did get some pretty fantastic characters because yeah, it started off a little slow, I think, for some people in terms
Yeah.
of like the characters, especially the 4 stars. I think were very underwhelming when Sumeru first came out, and I'm glad that we ended up getting some pretty good ones over there. Okay,
All
I
right.
will talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you
Talk to
again.
you
We love
soon.
you.
We love you too. All right, take care.
Bye. You too.
Bye.
All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out during the tier list. That was so much fun. I also love hearing Byte's takes on all of this and kind of finding a middle ground for our opinions and whatnot. So super freaking fun.